everyone. Good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're connected from. Welcome to this webinar. Thank you for joining. And today is Wednesday, the 9th of July, 2025. And we are delighted to host you to this webinar brought to you by Paygilant and DataGroupIT. As many of you have come in contact with DataGroupIT before now, we're a cybersecurity distribution company, and we cover Africa, and we bring the best of to you. And in this webinar today, we would be talking about vigilance, the evolution of fraud in digital banking and payments. And at this moment, we'd just like to give 1 or 2 minutes more for others to join us. So just give us a few more seconds, 60 seconds to slightly more than 60 seconds to, allow other people to join us in this webinar. Thank you so much. In the meantime, if it is not too much to ask, I would like you to please put in the chat box where you are connected from, which country you are connected from, and then I would, recognize your presence, and we can do this as much as we can before, we get started. All right. So let's keep it coming, guys. Just tell us the country you're connected from. Hi, Hugo. Thank you. From see more people joining up. Yeah, David Kayamba from Uganda. Thank you so very much for joining. Yeah, we have some Ethiopia. Yeah, Ruth from Malawi, Paul from Uganda. Yeah, I see you. Cheneret from Ethiopia. Thank you so much. I see you. Thank you for joining. More people are joining. Yeah, from Malawi, Mohammed from Zambia, Barbara from Ghana, Martin from Botswana, Tisunge, sorry if I murdered your name, from Malawi, Kasonde from Zambia, Emmanuel from Lagos. Oh, sorry, Emmanuel Lago from Ghana. Yeah, excellent, excellent. Thank you guys for making this interactive. Really do appreciate. Yeah, Siemens from Mozambique, and Dennis from Ghana, and Felix Sally from Zambia. Thank you so much, guys, for making me feel loved and making me feel connected to you. All right. So without much ado, I would like to hand over this webinar. I'm delighted to have, Sarah Pinheiro and Ziv Cohen. We'll be delving deep into the Paygilant story, and please be connected. And of course, if you have any questions because of this webinar, please feel free to, use the chat box to, ask your questions. And if you want to wait till the end of the presentation, that is also more than welcome. All right. From me, I would say thank you once again, and we are happy to have you join us today. Thank you very much. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Segun. Hi, good morning, everyone. Some of you already know me. For the ones who don't, thank you for joining us today. I'm Sarah Pinheiro. I'm based in Lagos, and I'm the regional sales manager for Paygilant, and we are here with DataGroupIT, proud partners of Paygilant across Africa. So it's a pleasure to welcome Ziv Cohen here as well, CEO and co-founder of Paygilant, who brings over 20 years of experience in fraud prevention, cybersecurity, fintech innovation. So Ziv has led major security initiatives for global banks and has been the forefront of using AI and stay ahead of evolving fraud trends. So for those who are joining us for the first time and will be seeing Paygilant for the first time, so Paygilant is a fraud prevention company delivering real-time, frictionless protection across all channels. The platform combines behavior, biometrics, device intelligence, AI-driven analytics, helping financial institutions detect and stop fraud before it happens all over the world. So today, Ziv will walk us through some of the key fraud trends we are seeing globally and in Africa specific, and how organizations can proactively mitigate these threats using innovative data-driven tools. I promise you all that it's going to be a very valuable and practical session. For the ones who will actually want to proceed with one-to-one meetings, I'm here with DataGroupIT, and we will arrange those sessions after this webinar. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Ziv Cohen. And Ziv, the floor is yours.
Sarah, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having this session today and for actually having the time to join us. We will try to make it as informative and productive for all of you. There's also the chat, by the way, before we start. So any questions you have or anything you have in mind or some additional information that you would like to ask, please feel free to do so. And I will be more than happy to address that even during the webinar. So as Sarah mentioned, we are a global company. Paygilant actually focuses on frictionless fraud management, working with banks, fintechs, and different financial organizations around the world. We've been clearly endorsed, and we work very closely with very honorable entities around the world, whether that's MasterCard, the European Commission, and other organizations which drive the new financial market initiatives, whether that's open banking, PSD2, and of course everything that has to do with privacy. We operate globally. We have a global and quite a fast-growing operation in Africa, which means that we're very familiar with how fraud is being committed. And this is definitely one of the things that we're going to address in this webinar. So what we're going to do is start by, first of all, giving some information about what we see, okay, globally and specifically in the region. So I don't think this is a surprise to you, the fact that over 1.7 billion individuals have their personal data stolen and compromised just last year. And this number clearly keeps growing as the diversity of financial organizations actually becomes more and more prevalent around the world. And with the new financial vehicles such as, again, open banking and PSD2, where it is way more than just the traditional and the legacy banks providing their own services. So on one hand, we are seeing many more new financial organizations, small ones, big ones, which are growing and offering more financial services, growing their channels. So if it was just, card or mobile, now there is mobile and card and USSD and POS and ATM and wallets, and basically all of the above together. This drives fraudsters to focus on this market and, of course, come up with new innovative ways to fly under the radar of the legacy security controls and then be able to commit fraud effectively and successfully and steal the money from your customers' bank accounts. And of course, this comes together with the employees who are also exploiting such vulnerabilities internally, and then they are committing fraud in order to compromise the customer's accounts from within. So this is actually one of the things that we focus a lot on, due to the fact that looking at the new ways that fraudsters come up with, the tools that they have, the new technologies that they utilize, and this is not in line with the protection layers which banks have today. And that's what makes fraud very, very successful, and what makes this number keeps growing year over year. Now, again, I think that it's quite clear that for the industry, for the banks, it is way more difficult than the fraudsters due to various reasons, right? I mean, it's much easier for the bad guys because they don't need to comply with any regulation. All the information is out there. Once you use the card for the first time, once you use your credentials, there is a very good chance that after the first or second time, that's going to be already publicly offered in the dark web and the underground. So this information is available to them, easy access, and then it can be used also to commit fraud. There is no, organized or I'd say expertise even needed today, since everything can be provided as fast fraud as a service. So for the fraudster side, it's quite easy, it's straightforward, and they are definitely using that in order to commit fraud very successfully. looking at, the bank side, well, that's where the problem is, because you need to follow procedures. There is regulation. The processes within the bank are slow, by nature. So even when you want to come up with a new security control, or you identify a breach and you want to close it, it doesn't happen in a day, nor in a week or a month. It takes time, and this time is the window of opportunity for fraudsters to operate, and then of course commit fraud and harvest as much money as possible. There are new business models, okay, and these also create new vulnerabilities. There is the rules that the banks have to follow. So all this is the cumbersome side, which again enables fraudsters to commit fraud very effectively. And at the end of the day, what we need to do, and the idea behind actually protecting banks effectively, is to bridge this gap. So that on one hand we will follow and work according to the bank's processes, but at the same time be very agile, very proactive, and very fast to respond to the ever-changing attacks and techniques used by the fraudsters. Now, the hackers actually leverage, crime rings, right? First of all, it's a global reach. This means that we're not talking about script kiddies, like those immature, youth, which get access to some devices and they commit fraud and they steal $100, $1,000, or even $10,000. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about here, we're talking about a financial crime, which is a global operation that has multiple teams distributed around the world, where you have the IT teams responsible for crafting, let's say, the attacks. You have the intelligence units that actually do the analysis around the bank's processes and identify the vulnerabilities and the breaches that can be exploited afterwards. There are the business owners who actually drive this entire business. And at the end of the day, they're all after big money and mass attacks. So this is not a small operation, rather than a big operation, which has basically unlimited funding. And that's the reason why they're being so successful. Stolen cards and personal data in the marketplace. So again, this information is available at any given time to anyone, okay, including us, to anyone. We can go to the underground and we can easily acquire whatever information we want about the bank or the bank's customers in order to commit fraud. And of course, we're talking about AI, deepfake, and the most advanced technologies and capabilities today. So it's not only the good guys who are using the most advanced technologies, it's definitely the bad guys, the fraudsters, the cyber criminals, who are at the forefront also of the AI technology, only that they use that in order to commit fraud and compromise the bank's security controls. Now, looking at FAST, and I think that this is really fascinating. It's fascinating because, again, you don't need to have all the expertise. You only need to fund this in order to benefit from that fraud at the end of the day. So everything is in the underground. It's all fraud as a service today. You can buy the service, and then you can again benefit from the money that is being stolen as a result of such attacks. You can see that this is driven clearly by deepfake and AI. So even if we thought just recently that biometric authentication, for example, is unbreakable, then think again. Because looking at even face recognition, so it's not just about masking or having, an image or a picture or running some liveness, but today with deep fake technologies, with AI-driven technologies, it is very, very easy and quite simple for fraudsters to not just commit fraud once the transaction is initiated or the payment, but right from the beginning of the customer's journey when they onboard and open a new account. So faking the documents, And of course, when onboarding and opening and following the KYC procedures using such advanced technologies, they are able to open fake accounts and then use those accounts as mule accounts to receive money and then liquidate and cash out this money, whether that's locally, regionally, or elsewhere around the world. So looking today at what we're actually combating or dealing with, this is really the most advanced ways of dealing with those fraudsters. Now, let's talk a little bit about what we're actually seeing out there. And I believe that all of you will relate to, if not all of these, then some of the fraud MOs, the modus operandi, and the use cases that are out there committed by fraudsters. So new account fraud is one of the best ways for fraudsters to just open fake accounts and then use them as mule accounts to receive money and transfer the money. This actually happens with no KYC, partial KYC, full KYC, because according to the process, the regulation, and the compliance that the bank has to follow, in some cases, you can even open an account without going through the entire process. And that's good enough for fraudsters to even receive small amounts and then chain those amounts in order to liquidate them afterwards, again, regardless of what is the liquidation method. It could be the ATM, it could be P2P, it could be just going to the store and buying something. But the new account fraud is the start or the first step for the fraudsters to actually have their operation built within the bank. Then with account takeover, so if in the past we were talking about some simple phishing attacks where credentials are harvested, and today we're talking about sophisticated phishing attacks, social engineering with live actually attacks where you call the customer and you lure the customer to share the OTP. So OTPs alone are definitely not good enough because they use the same credentials, and then they also have the customer on the line to complete the account takeover and the transactions. Transaction fraud and APP fraud, so authenticated push payments, this even becomes more sophisticated and a bigger challenge for the banks to deal with today, due to the fact that if I'm doing everything as the legitimate customer, how can you really distinguish between me and the fraudster while everything looks good? Synthetic identity fraud, so I can take my ID, blend that with some fake address or email address and phone number, and now I create an identity which doesn't really exist, and there is no cross-referencing by the regulators or by the banks to actually ensure that this information is real, valid, and belongs to the customer. So another way for fraudsters to take advantage of the kind of, let's say, semi-mess that exists today, and of course commit their fraud. Employee fraud, so it's not just from the outside, but clearly also from the inside. If I'm a banker and I follow my customers' instructions to initiate a new transaction, to transfer money, or even without doubt, because I manage my customers' accounts, and now I know exactly which customers have dormant accounts, which ones are suspended, and what are their activities within their accounts. Of course, I can do that from within and then initiate new transactions without anyone even noticing that money has been stolen from those accounts. And it goes on and on. SIM swap and SIM cloning, clearly, a great way for fraudsters also to commit such fraud by changing the phone numbers or just cloning the SIM, putting that in another device, another phone, and completing transactions. So I'm just touching a few of what we actually seeing, okay, on a daily basis and dealing with all our banking customers in Africa and globally. Let's look at how we can effectively, manage such cases and come up to a point where we can really distinguish accurately between fraud and no fraud, frictionless experience for the good users, and of course blocking the transactions before they're authorized and they leave the account. So fighting such type of sophisticated fraud requires more than just a single layer or one method. It is a combination of multi-layer that takes into consideration various elements that must work in conjunction with each other and in harmony to generate this very accurate indication, which based on that, a decision will be made, right? It must be a global intelligence and collaboration. First and foremost, it's not a domestic, it's not even a regional way of combating fraud. You need to have a global intelligence because of what we just said in a few minutes ago. If I am running a fraudulent gang and I am attacking now and targeting, say, Bank of America or HSBC or Santander or Tempo Bank in Chile, for that matter, I can use the exact same operation now to target UBA or Zenith or CBA or any other organization around the world. And that's going to happen in minutes. So having a global intelligence is a key to detect such attacks, to analyze them, to come up with the right countermeasures and ensure that the entire client base is always protected against any attack, no matter when it actually happens. The second thing has to do with the multi-intelligence set approach, and we'll talk about it, that actually looks broadly at what kind of data is required for the AI models today to predict fraud very accurately. And it must be done fast, it must be done in a flexible manner and in real time. And again, this relates to what we said before, bridging this gap that exists between fraudsters not needing to comply with anything and having no constraints whatsoever, and they can do whatever they want. On the other hand, the banks must follow processes and regulations, so there is a gap that must be bridged, and this is the real-time agile ability to actually do both without changing the nature of the banks. This includes three main pillars. The first one is the data which is required in order to even come up with the prediction or the decision whether that's risky or safe. Now, the data can no longer be one single set. It cannot be behavioral profiles based on transactions only, or looking at or trying to identify devices, or coming up with some behavioral ways to profile a user. This means working in silos, and this belongs to the past. And this is exactly what fraudsters are taking advantage of. So it must be a complete data set that includes multiple data types that are then being analyzed by the advanced AI models. So the AI models take this diversity of data and then models it to the extent that the system can predict, not just using predictive ways that belong to the past, like machine learning, but agentic, for example, AI, which looks ahead and knows exactly what's going to happen next with regard to this activity performed by the user, right from the beginning of the customer's journey. So having the diversity of multiple data types being analyzed by the advanced AI algorithms, but machine alone cannot do the job. It must also be run by the experts. So the knowledge, the know-how, the expertise, the experience is what drives this effectiveness at the end of the day, and the ability to distinguish in real time between risky activities and fraudulent activities, which have immediate impact on the user's experience, on the frictionless experience, which all the banks are after in order to enhance the conversion rate and the adoption rate and the retention of their customers, while at the same time avoiding money loss as a result of fraud attacks. Now, diving a bit deeper to share with you what is actually under the hood when it comes to this diversity of data. So the diversity of data looks at what we call 6 intelligence sets. which are divided to 3 logical groups. And you can see that they're also color-coded. You have the green group, the blue, and the gray. And it is very important because each set is responsible for different parts of the risk analysis. The green group looks at the devices which are connecting to the bank's applications. The device DNA, think about the next generation of what's known as device ID or device fingerprinting. And the reason why this is a device DNA is because of privacy. We all know that just a few years ago, okay, recently, we could easily get access to anyone's device, whether that's the browser or the mobile phone, and just collect whatever information, whatever data, without even asking the consent or the permissions for that matter. But that has completely changed due to privacy. So GDPR and all the other versions of GDPR around the world, together with the policies of Apple and Google, which are becoming more and more strict, they are limiting access to the same locations, and they are no longer enabling capturing those data points, which results in those device IDs being very vulnerable, very slim. And now all of us can easily, I really mean that, can easily, clone, replicate, duplicate a real ID and just connect to the bank's application from other devices, making them look as if it's the real customer's device, and no one will notice, and we will be able to commit fraud freely. So DNA is critical because we blend attributes that can be fetched and captured according to the regulations, the policies, with an algorithm in the backend which is not accessible to anyone, and blending these two forms a UUID, a unique ID that cannot be compromised, and it's only registered once in the system and then attached to the user as the entity. So recognizing uniquely the devices that are connecting to the banking applications is critical as a starting point. Then looking at what is called the user space. Now, I'll give you a simple example of how important that is. This is my iPhone, for example, and you have your own phones, right? So this iPhone that I'm holding in my hand right now, there is nobody else in the world that has the exact same phone. Now, millions use the iPhone 15 Pro. That's true. And that's why the DNA is critical to identify the physical device uniquely. But the same way that Sarah will never be connected to the same Wi-Fi networks that I use, I will never have, Deanne's Bluetooth devices linked to my phone. So we all have unique operational environments, or what we call user spaces, which are signed virtually, right? So once you connect to the banking application with the DNA and the user space being immediately recognized, we can already tell that this is okay, this is safe, and that is not a fraudster, because fraudsters will never have the DNA, they never have the user spaces that we use and we own. Then we need to look also at the user's experience and, of course, the user's behavior around that. Take the activity map and the biomarkers. So what happens when we use the banking applications? When we log into our bank account, again, from our browsers or from our mobile phones, or when, afterwards we use cards and we withdraw money. But let's even look at us logging into our bank account. What do we do once we actually log in? I, for example, always check my account balance first, and I stay around 7 seconds on that page before I navigate and check my credit account, and afterwards I transfer money. So I have my own flow, and each and every one of you behave differently. This needs to be mapped and then added to us as the customers. Because again, looking at fraudsters, they can use social engineering, and they do. They can steal our identities, they can steal our credentials, they can capture the OTP, they can do all sorts of very sophisticated things using AI and no AI, but they will never have the DNA. They have no idea how we behave when we use the banking applications, and they surely don't have the user space. They don't behave like we do biometrically, So the way that we touch or they scroll is not the same. Moreover, if this is a human touch, we know that this is a real person, but we also know that fraudsters use sophisticated tools such as emulators and bots and other types of machines to commit fraud against the bank. And of course, if this is a machine swipe, then it doesn't matter who the user is. No legitimate customer of yours will ever bank with you through an emulator, right? So you have indicators that must be in place in order to, again, be sure that this is fraud and not any of your legitimate customers using your banking applications legitimately for transferring money. And last but not least has to do with now combining this with a real-time transaction monitoring, whether that's for compliance or fraud. So all the behavioral profiles around time, amount, payer, payee, location, merchant ID, card ID, and much more than that, this needs to be profiled per user. So this is the diversity of data sets that I'm actually referring to when I'm saying that this is vital to fight fraud today effectively. This all needs to be ingested into a risk engine that calculates this in real time in milliseconds, attach that to all the banking channels. So no matter which channel is there, your card transactions, mobile applications, wallets, internet banking, personal, corporate, ATM, POS, employees, this all needs to be analyzed and the dots must be connected to reach a very accurate decision so that an action will be taken accordingly. The other thing that I want to mention is simplicity. And I'm sure that, again, you're going to relate to this when I'm talking about how cumbersome it is today to implement, to integrate, to deploy a new fraud management system within a bank. Okay, in simple words, it takes forever. So it takes a very long time to complete integrations only with a single channel, not even talking about 5, 6, 7, 10 channels. And then all the systems today, they must first of all have lots of data in order to even create the behavioral profiles, and this takes time because nobody controls the behavior of the customers, nor the fraudsters. So it takes a very long time before the system becomes productive, and of course with very, very minimal false positives, because you don't want to block legitimate transactions and allow fraudulent transactions to go through. We have reshaped the way that fraud management can be consumed today by banks and financial organizations to the extent that it's all cloud-based. Everything is clearly, fully secured with privacy, data security, user security around that. It is a single tenant that is set up in minutes. Then connecting your core banking applications with all the applications to the environment is done seamlessly with just a few API calls and SDKs for the mobile and internet banking applications. And in just a matter of a few weeks, you are up and running in production with all the models, your policies fully tuned with a day one prevention mode. So this is a completely different way for you to protect the bank with the most advanced technologies, but at the same time, get value very quickly, as opposed to allocating so many resources and waiting a very long time for the solution to even become productive and effective and worth the money that you paid for. In addition to the real-time scoring, which is actually sent back from Pagilant's risk engine back to your server for every activity that the user performs, so not just the payments, the transactions, but every financial and non-financial activity is protected against fraud. Every registration, every login, every time that the user wants to change some details in their profiles, right? If I change my phone number, this is directly related to a risk of fraud, because if fraudsters manage to get access to our account and they change the phone number and the OTP sent by the bank goes to the fraudsters' servers or devices, they close the loop. So every activity that the user performs, which somehow has any connection to a risk of fraud, is monitored. Of course, all the transactions, transaction types, P2P, remittance, bill payments, withdrawals, deposits, inflows, outflows, all that must be in place. But in addition to the automatic process which happens behind the scenes, it is very important also for you to have an open book with regard to what the system actually does. So this situation where you just received a risk score, back then from any system, and this risk score was very high, and you ask, okay, why was it very high? Just I want to know, because I'm actually now making a business decision based on it. And the answer you're getting is, well, the model decided that it's very high based on all the features that were there. This is not good enough today. You need to have an open book that literally provides you the ability to understand exactly what the system did and what was the reason that the system reached such a conclusion that the risk is high, medium, or low, so that one, you can communicate that to customers if they call, and secondly, and more importantly, you can also analyze it and investigate it internally by having all the tools you need to do that, very effectively and fast. In addition to that, it is also important, and again, remember that it's not just about the most advanced algorithms and models around AI and the diversity of the data, but it's also the expertise. So always demand, okay, from whatever solution you acquire, that there's going to be someone, a person, an expert assigned to you, working together with you as part of your own risk and fraud and security team. Because there is it's a huge change when it comes to someone, from the OEM who knows the product inside out, and of course analyzes the information, makes the adjustments and the calibrations on the fly, and is available to you at any given time to address any threat, so that you always be protected. Now, just to give you some again some idea about time frames, okay, it goes back to the simplicity. So this project that takes forever is no longer acceptable. It's not acceptable due to the fact that you need to be protected as soon as possible, and the stages must include, very few steps from the kickoff meeting all the way to automation in production being completed very quickly, with all the required resources allocated to you, available to you, to assist you with completing that, whether that's the integration, APIs or SDKs, whether that's the fraud cases settings, whether that's the MOs that need to be in place, and of course all the policies behind that, so that right from the beginning, your policies will be taken into consideration, together with the ability of the system to build the behavioral profiles and predict accordingly to prevent fraud and also enable this frictionless user's experience. The other thing is the support. So I don't know what is your experience today when it comes to getting support from any service provider you work with, but this is really a key. Now, first and foremost, working with DGAT, okay, lifts this support level to different heights. So you have multiple support levels, and this is something that we never compromise on. One is local support. Two is it's all 24/7, allocating the relevant resources to you to address anything at any given time, different communication channels to respond on the fly. So if today you're used to sending an email or opening a ticket, and this ticket goes to, first level support, second level support, escalation, and it might take, a very long time, that is not the case. Again, don't compromise on that anymore. You need to be you need to get support whenever you need it. So it's multiple channels that are communicating with you on the fly, whether that's Slack, Viber, Teams, WhatsApp, emails, anything. So different level of support, immediate response to any inquiry or any assistance that you actually need from the system. All right, I'm going to stop here because I think this is quite a lot of information in a relatively short time. And before we move to the actual part of running Paygilant, okay, and activating the system and telling you exactly what we're going to see and what we're going to do, I'm happy to address any questions that you might have at this point. So please go ahead and ask them. Okay, we can leave that part. You can have your questions and send the questions afterwards, and I'll be more than happy and the team to address those. So let's just move and run the system. Basically, what we have done, we have created an entire environment that reflects everything we've talked about until now. And this environment has multiple elements. It has in this case, a mobile app called NGPay, with Pagilant's SDK in it. So kind of a concise reflection of a banking app. We have the PFM, which is the Pagilant Fraud Management, with the dashboards and the events and the case management to actually show you exactly how the system handles different scenarios in real time. And also you're gonna act as fraudsters in just a few minutes, and you will try to take over, Sarah's account and commit fraud. And we'll see how the system responds to that in real time, taking into consideration all the elements and the intelligence sets that are part of the fraud management platform. So Sarah, please go ahead. By the way, maybe just before that, just before Sarah starts, I think in the chat, or maybe the DGIT team, can you please share with everyone the access to the NGPay app, whether that's on iOS or Android, so that they'll be able to download the app and run the account takeover from their own devices.
Right, Ziv, no problem. I'm going to just drop a chat now.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Yep.
Ziv, I will share my screen from my mobile.
Just before that, let's just give maybe a minute. Yeah, you can share your screen, Sarah, absolutely. While doing this, please, let's just have the audience access the NGPay on the stores, both stores, and just confirm that they managed to access it and download. You're just going to download it, go through the installation process. It will take you 10 seconds, go through the permissions and everything until you reach the login page, and just wait there before you start committing fraud against Sarah.
Yeah, I'm the victim. Shigun, can you also share the name of the app, NGPay? So NGPay is for the people that have Android. They can just literally go to the Play Store and download it. The test flight link is for iOS. Yes, Dennis, Android version is NGPay, like the name you see on the screen. You just look for it on the Play Store.
Yeah, I'm trying to get the Play Store link as well. I'll drop it shortly. But you can go search for NGPay on Play Store. But let me just quickly get that for you and drop it.
Thank you.
By the way, for those of you who use iOS, just according to Apple's policies, yeah, just if you get a request to install TestFlight, and that's Apple's platform for running, you know, such applications, so that's fine. It's safe. You can do that.
All right, so I have dropped the Android version of NGP and of course the Apple version of NGP on the chat. So guys, let's get on it. Thank you.
Hi, João, you don't need an invitation code. You install the TestFlight app and then you click on this link. It should redirect you directly, okay? You don't have to put any code.
On Android, it's just about 13 megs, about 12.3 megs actually. So if you're finding it difficult to get the app, please let us know. We'll be very happy to assist. Okay. Thank you.
Perhaps while downloading and installing it, Sarah, maybe you can start and then we can proceed from there.
Okay. All right, everyone. So what I'm doing now is basically we are pretending that this is a bank's mobile app, and I'm logging as if I was a legitimate user, right? So immediately now I went to the transfer section, and I will perform a transaction of $100 to Ziv. Okay. As you can see here, I'm gonna now click on confirm, and it was approved, as you can see. So now what we are gonna do is we are gonna share my credentials, and you will try to log in using my credentials, and we will simulate an account takeover. All right. So my credentials can be shared on the chat box. It's Sarah with capital S, sorry, no H, S-A-R-A, capital S. And the passcode is 1234. Shegun, can you put that down?
Yeah, please come again. I got the passcode 1234, but I didn't get the first.
Sarah, S-A-R-A, capital S.
All right. Okay, great. I'm doing that now.
Wonderful. While you're actually doing it, just to explain, okay, what you've seen when Sarah logged into her account and transferred money. So you saw how fast it is, and that is the frictionless part. But behind the scenes, there was the entire flow, okay, running. It means that when Sarah opened her app, the first thing that happened was the Paygilant SDK, clearly being 100% transparent, that was triggered and then communicated with Pagilant's risk engine in the backend, transferred and transmitted the relevant data points related to Sarah's behavior, device, and other elements within the 6 intelligence sets, and then waited for this new session for Sarah to log in. So the risk assessment begins before the user even logs in. Now, when Sarah logged in and entered her credentials, it could be username and password, as it is in this case. It could be clearly according to your process, username, password, and token, or biometric, fingerprint, or face, whatever the authentication is. But once the user logs in, there is a call for risk. It all happens in milliseconds, sent from your server to Pagilant's risk engine. What is the risk of this login for Sarah for this new request? Pagilant's risk engine calculated all the different factors and then reached a conclusion whether the risk is high, medium, or low. In this case, it was very low, and we will see that because of multiple reasons. Oh, I see lots of attempts. That's great.
There is a lot. You need to go to the third page already.
Down there, this is where you are. I see lots of attempts, but that's great. We will go over them. But just to complete, so the risk engine calculated all that in real time and then responded with a risk score and the decision. Risk is low, all good, everything matches. The DNA, the user space, the behavior, the location, the transaction, all matches. Transaction is safe. This can be approved without bothering the customer with additional authentication methods. Do not send an OTP. Save money and enhance the user's experience without compromising fraud and without being concerned that this might be a fraudulent attack. So you're enhancing the user's experience and avoiding money loss. Now, let's look at, that's in real time, right? What you guys are now doing. So this is Sarah. That's Sarah's session. Now, we can immediately see that there is a new session ID created when she opened the app. There is a new request ID. The user ID is Sarah, and that's the unique device DNA that was generated for Sarah's phone in this case, as it is for every device. And the action that they did was login. So monitoring everything, in this case, it's login, can be register, login, as you can see here, for example, the checkpoints, login, register, transactions, adding payment methods, updating user info, many actions. So in this case, it was login, and the risk was low. The risk score was 1. The range is from 1 to 999. She connected from her iPhone 15 Plus, correct, Sarah?
Yes, correct. Just a moment. There is someone having a struggle here on the chat.
Sure.
Shigun, can you paste the code again for the iPhone for can you paste the link, the initial link for iOS, the testflight.apple.com for this person?
Yeah, he's asking for the redeem code. There is no redeem code.
No, paste the link. Paste the link again for
the
the
link
test
again.
flight.
Okay,
Yes.
No problem. For iPhone, okay, no problem. I got it.
Great. So after Sarah logged in successfully, because the login was safe, then she transferred $100. So let's look at her transaction now. So she transferred, by the way, again, you can see that the session is the same session ID because it's still within the same session. There are device DNA, it's her device. So she transferred $100 to me in this case. Again, from her device, the system calculated the risk and then reached a conclusion that the risk is very low. You can see the device is green, the user is a known user, and the transaction is green, so everything matches. And as a result of that, no need to bother Sarah with any additional authentication methods, and surely no need to block her transaction. And that's how she managed to complete her payment and then money transfer without any friction and with the best user experience. Now, let's look at what happened next, right? So right after Sarah's activity, we can see that all the attempts failed. I believe that some of you or whoever tried to transfer money received a decline. So let's look at the first one. Someone here connected with a Samsung device, right? And this was a login, so there was no transaction yet. And we can already see, remember the 6 intelligence sets are divided to 3 logical groups: device, user, and transaction. So on the devices level, you see that it's green, even though you committed fraud. The reason is that you all use your private phones, and your private phones are legit, right? You're not real fraudsters. If this was a fraudster, they would never be using their own private devices. So the device would be red because it would be a fraudulent device or an emulator or another type of machine used to run the banking application. But on the user's level, you can see that the system immediately detected that this is not Sarah. That's a suspected account takeover, okay, with a suspicious geospeed. So you all you're connected from various locations. And it doesn't make any sense that, Sarah is now in Nigeria, and in 20 seconds, she'll be connecting from, another place. So the system also measures the geo together with the speed, with the DNA, with the user spaces and the behavior and the transaction to reach a conclusion whether this login is even safe or maybe that's fraudulent. So it's a suspected account takeover. Someone is using her stolen credentials with social engineering and phishing, suspicious geospeed. There is an account verification mismatch. And this happens way before money was even transferred. So when this person now tried to transfer money from a Samsung device, the checkpoint was transaction, it was sent to this payee, and you can see that now also on the transaction level, we have more reasons. And that is the open book that I mentioned before. It's not just about telling you the risk was high, the risk was low with a number. Also sharing the reasons. So again, the device that you all use is your private device, which is a legitimate device. But this is a suspicious geospeed. It's an account verification mismatch. The money was sent to a new payee. This alone is not an indication for fraud. But when it comes with all the other reasons, then of course it indicates on a fraudulent transaction. And it's a suspicious transaction. Right? And I see more and more and more of you trying to commit fraud against Sarah, but you all failed. Now, this is all, again, real time as you can see it. You're actually doing it right now. There is another example of someone connected from a Huawei device and sending $200 to effort, correct? Failing to do so. By the way, here we do see that the device is red. There is something suspicious on this person's device that the system actually indicated as higher risk, with all the other reasons that eventually prevented this fraudster from transferring money and completing the fraudulent transaction effectively. Now, even if we go and look at where this fraud is coming from, well, I believe, let's even do it. Let's do it like this. Well, let's look at some cases. Who was the one connecting from Botswana? I believe that this is where you are, the fraudster. So not only identifying the device that you're connecting from and committing fraud, the user that you compromised, the amount and the payee and the mule account that you tried transferring money to, but your exact physical location. So from that moment on, you will not be able to continue using this location, this device, the stolen credentials to commit fraud against the bank. Let's take another example. Someone connecting from Rwanda. So you don't need to come clean, but I believe that it's definitely one of you who tried to commit fraud from this exact place with your, fraudulent devices and stolen credentials, correct?
Yes, Ziv, the person needs to come clean. You're not going to be arrested. This is a demo, right? You're not going to be arrested. So if you're connected from Botswana, please raise your hand. You're not going to be arrested,
Well, today.
Oh,
today
okay, there goes the person. The person has raised his hand. Is Effort Moyo. Hi,
Okay.
Effort.
And this person is from Nairobi. So that's another one. So what happens, right? What happens next is that, guys, we know exactly what you do. We know where you are, okay? And just don't try to attack this bank, which is protected by Paygilant. Just go and look for a more vulnerable victim. What happens is that, even if we go to the event, right, and we see someone now, I don't know, try to transfer $1. Now, when we go to the resolution, just mark it as fraud. And then we have all the flexibility to decide which attributes of this fraud case are going to be blacklisted, or what we call caged, right? I mean, if the user's credentials have been stolen, the user is good, right? You don't need to block the user. You can re-credential the user and then, of course, block the device, because this is a fraudulent device. And this is also a destination ID because the money was transferred to a mule account, and the payment method and the IP. And what was the fraud MO? Was it an account takeover, counting fraud, any other thing? Yeah, ATM jackpotting. So we do this analysis together with you so that every attempt is immediately detected, automatically blocked, and then caged and blacklisted so that this gang can no longer target your bank and steal money from your banking customers. Any questions about that, or any question in general that you have in mind? Please feel free to ask.
Zib, Sarah, do you want me to unmute if they want to raise their hand and ask a question? Would that be easier?
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay, so if you raise your hand, then I can unmute you if you want to ask a question.
There's some hands already raised here.
I have a loud mic for both. You just would need to unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hi, Effort here. So, is there a use case for your solution for a situation where you are making an organization rather is making an outbound transfer to a client of theirs, probably using a cell phone number? So they are essentially making a transfer to a cell phone, or a digital wallet, to a digital wallet. Can such a transaction be tracked by your application? So that transaction is from a bank account to a digital wallet.
Yes, the answer is absolutely yes, because the system actually monitors the entire money flow, inflows, inbound, outbound, and all the relations among these flows. For example, since we create this very broad behavioral profile and intelligence around each and every one of the accounts, the users, the customers, then we link all the devices, their transactions, their locations, their activities to this entity. We see where is money going and who's receiving the money. So once, for example, from a bank account, someone gets access to a bank account and initiates a new transaction to another account or to a wallet account, then we understand exactly whether this transaction is within the behavioral scope of this customer or not, or outside of it. Also, whether there are multiple transactions going out from this source to multiple destinations, or maybe there are multiple destinations even, sending money to a single account, and what is the behavior of this account, and what happens with the money once the funds have been received. Does it stay in the account? Is it immediately transferred elsewhere? Is it transferred to another account within the bank, or maybe another account outside the bank, or another wallet? So we actually have this full visibility end to end from devices, accounts, behaviorals within the bank and outside the bank, with this interoperability among different channels. Could be a wallet to a bank to a bank, a wallet to a wallet, internet banking to a mobile banking, any combination you can think of.
Okay, there is another hand raised by Sadiq Moses, and then we have one in the chat. Sadiq, can you unmute yourself and let us know what your question is?
Ideally, my question was about the locator. As much as the locator was accurate in the SIM, real world scenarios are different. These are people who actually have very multiple tunnels connected. So what guarantee could it be in identifying where the attack has happened from?
Okay, so when it comes to location, we actually do not rely only on, let's say, a single factor such as IP. We utilize multiple factors that include the IP, the GPS, and we also know the network operator that the user is connected to. So if I'm in Israel right now, I cannot claim that I'm connected to Safaricom. It's impossible for me to do that. I cannot even really spoof that. And even if I try to, then we have the mechanisms to detect that this is a VPN proxy or any other spoofing, attempts by the fraudsters. So the combination of those give us a very, very accurate visibility into the exact location of this legitimate customer and also the fraudster. Now, there are several things happening in real time around the location. First and foremost, like any other part of the intelligence sets, we also build behavioral profiles around the legitimate locations of the legitimate customer. Because, at the end of the day, if you live in a certain area, you have your work, your office, your home, maybe you go to the mall. I mean, you have your locations where you usually connect to your banking applications and then transfers money. So once this behavioral profile is built together with the exact, IP, GPS, network operator, when there is an attack against you, the location will surely, deviate from this profile. And that's only one part. The devices which will be used to attack you will have different device DNAs, which are not registered to you as the legitimate customer. Their user space, what they have on their devices or don't have on the devices, if you're talking about fraudsters, because they never use their real private, devices, correct? I mean, they will be factory resetting the devices, completely wiping it because they don't want to be traced back. So the devices, the user spaces will look completely different. So the DNA will be different. The user space will not match. The location will surely be different, especially with the geospeed. The behavior will be different, and the transaction at the end of the day will mismatch. So when you connect all these dots, that's how we reach this accurate conclusion that, yes, this is fraud, and that is not you as the legitimate customer.
Well, thank you for that clarification. Profiling is way better. It makes a lot of sense to me as a security engineer. However, there are, there are scenarios whereby we faced individuals that were using there's a, I really don't know how, but they were getting the exact keystrokes of the bankers from their digital phones, and they were able to match them to match the exact device, location, IP, network provider. So me asking this is I want you, yes, you've mentioned profiling. That makes a lot of sense, because in our audit, we realized that this individual was just making transactions from specific locations. But this attack happened from a very different geolocation. So maybe the profiling makes sense to me. So I don't know how you're going to clear my doubt, because these individuals were able to get the keystrokes, operating system of the phone, model, service provider, and it took us some time to realize this. Maybe if you can throw some light on that.
Yeah, definitely. Let's continue with this use case that you brought up. Okay, so let's assume that the banker managed to steal even the credentials and some other elements related to this user, and now they're trying to commit fraud. Now, you'd agree with me that if I'm the real customer, I'm the victim, and Paygilant has the devices that I own that belong to me, with the device DNA linked to my account. Now, any other device which is not registered to me as the legitimate user in our system will immediately increase the risk. That's one. So even if I have the bio and I have the credentials and I even manage in real time to capture the OTP, I will be connecting as the fraudster, and the attacker, I'll be using different devices. Those devices will not be owned by me and registered in the system. The fraudsters have no idea even how I behave when I use my bank account or I use my banking application, your banking applications. So the flow will be totally different, because let's assume that they managed to get in. What do they do next? The next thing they do is go to the transaction of payment page and initiate a new transactions to liquidate the money as soon as possible and cash it out. And of course, that's not the way that we behave. Yeah, it doesn't take you, I don't know, half a second from the moment you log in to already transfer money. So there are many indicators and traps within the system that even in such case where the credentials or the bio, have been stolen and the location, still it would be very clear that this is not a legitimate customer, but a fraudster who is currently trying to commit fraud.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Maybe off call, I'll take you through the real scenario that happened. Then maybe you
Sure.
can advise accordingly.
Absolutely.
So there is a question on the chat. What if an attacker is using a VPN or more a device that is on an entirely different network? We touched a bit on that already, right, on this explanation.
Yeah, that's correct, Sarah, but I'll emphasize again. So VPNs, proxies, or spoofing tools used by fraudsters are detected by the system. This is actually part of our core competence, so it's part of the intelligence sets. And once there is such an attempt to connect via VPN, it is detected, and that is very effectively covered by Pagilant's FMS.
Thank you, Ziv. Is there any other questions? Anyone else who wants to raise their hand or write in the chat?
And if you prefer to, if you prefer to ask your questions verbally, then you can raise your hand as well.
Okay, that's fine. I'm sure that many questions will come up.
Yeah, there is a
There is another
question.
one.
Yeah.
Yes.
How are we going to integrate your NGPay with already working mobile app and core banking?
Okay, that's a good one. All right, so
Yeah.
NGPay is just you know, the platform that we use for you to experience how Paygilant works, okay, specifically now with the app. But what happens is that with your banking applications, there is no NGPay. So we will provide you an SDK, and you will integrate the SDK into your own mobile banking apps and internet banking, and that's it. So it is 100% transparent to your customers, and there is no app that, you know, they need to use, nothing whatsoever. Just a piece of code which is integrated with your banking applications.
Okay, there is a request for materials to be sent as well.
Sure.
DGIT team, I believe we can share some supporting materials from Paygilant product.
Yes, sir. So if you can share maybe the slide deck, I will include it together with the recording of the session in the thank you mailer later today.
Yes, please, Taibo, I see that you raised your hand.
Yes, I would like to know the licensing cost model. How you charge, and
Sure.
also the roadmap to implement this.
Yeah, no problem. So the model is quite straightforward. Basically, there is a one-time fee for the implementation from the kickoff meeting all the way to production with all the channels of the bank. Then there is a subscription fee, which is based on your registered users per annum. Okay, so it's tier-based depending on how many users are registered on the applications with, and this is very important, with unlimited number of transactions. So no matter how you grow, there is no additional charge whatsoever to make it as cost-effective as possible for you and the banks. And there is an annual support fee, clearly, because of all the changes made on your side and the bank side, you know, uploading different versions and different channels. So, and some technical matters that require Pagilant's assistance, then it's an annual support fee. That's basically it. To your other question, implementation process is quite straightforward. Normally, from the kickoff meeting all the way to production, it is completed in a few weeks' time. And this is a hand-holding process, which means that right from the beginning, Paygilant and DGIT allocate all the resources, whether that's fraud experts, developers, project managers, customer success manager, to each and every one of our banking customers.
Is it possible to set up a POC?
To set up what? Sorry, can you repeat that?
POC.
So we can.
Concept?
There is no difference, frankly saying, between a full-blown implementation and a POC, because at the end of the day, would have to go through all this process. But we can take it offline and then dive deeper into the process itself. No problem.
Okay, there is another question, Sadiq. And Sadiq, you can go first. Yeah, go ahead. Sadiq, you're unmuted.
Sorry about that. So in the presentation, you talked about the AI and machine learning in this process, but kindly enlighten me how the AI can play a role in detecting the attack patterns, or maybe if we can simplify, how does it help in the threat intelligence?
Definitely. Okay, so basically, when we look at the AI mechanisms, okay, we have the 6 intelligence sets running autonomous models. So each and every one of these intelligence sets works independently. For example, in analyzing different data types with different models. Take the device DNA. So the device DNA has its own AI engine that gathers the relevant data attributes, and then a model is built and a device profile around it for each device which belongs to each customer. Now, when it comes to the activity map, so the agentic AI mechanism, for example, or the projective AI, depending on which part of the solution it is, because there are different AI models and algorithms also. For example, the projective AI, the predictive AI takes the data, and then based on the activities that the users make, there is a prediction accordingly, depending on what action is taken, right? Whether that's the device now connecting and the biomarkers comes into play, and the location of the user, and many other elements related to what's going to be done next by the user, and what is the probability that this activity really belongs to this customer and customer's entity. And that's all done by the predictive AI. But when you take the agentic AI, that is another thing, right? I'll give you an example. Let's say that one of the fraud cases or the fraud MOs that we see is multiple users on same device, because we know that when fraudsters harvest credentials and now they try to commit fraud, let's assume that they have 1,000 credentials. They're never going to take 1,000 phones or devices or browsers for each stolen credential. So they reuse their own devices and platforms to make it look as if it's innocent and legit. So once we see, say, multiple users connecting from a single device, and this device also looks fraudulent, then the system clearly immediately analyzes it and reaches a conclusion that, yeah, this is a high-risk activity and device. But the agentic AI now analyzes the data as a whole over a period of time and says, if we define a policy that allows, let's say, up to 3 accounts or 4 accounts to be created on the same device, because beyond that, that is related to fraud, then the agentic AI now analyzes it over time with the exact fraud that occurred or didn't occur, and saying, all right, the last 6 months, we have not seen any fraud related to this specific policy of limiting up to 4 accounts to be created on that single device. So the recommendation of the system is to reduce that to, let's say, or to increase that to 6 or 7 or 10. You can enable this without compromising fraud, right? So there are multiple engines and AI algorithms and models responsible for different parts of always dynamically fine-tuning between the ability to prevent fraud and enable the business to grow by enhancing the user's experience and the conversion rate.
Great. I get it. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. There is another question. Charles, can you unmute yourself? Hello, Charles? Okay, I'm not sure if Charles can hear us. He raised his hand, but okay, are there any other questions? Anyone else who wants to share anything or write anything on the chat?
I do not see any, but I just saw a hand raised now.
Yeah, and there is again another question. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is a question in the chat. How does VPN obfuscation affect log analysis and incident correlation?
So that's going to
Yeah,
be
that
actually
came from Mokubi.
yes. Well, that remember in the reasons, right? Because several attack scenarios are being analyzed, and if we see such an attempt to use a VPN or an emulator or a proxy, but in this case, a VPN obfuscation, as you say it, then it will. It depends on the other factors. In most cases, you know, since this is an obfuscation, and we see that the device is in one physical location, but then the session is pretended to be connecting from another location. There is no correlation whatsoever between the two. And of course, this will indicate that this is a VPN which is not permitted. There are also, you know, other safe VPNs, and that doesn't mean that that's fraud, right? But the combination of all this, and of course, if we know this VPN and we have a global database which is being enriched daily, so those fraudulent VPNs are already listed in Pagilant's database. So if we see such a connection, or if this obfuscated VPN is now not in line with the other elements of the user and the device, then of course this is an indication for fraud. The risk will be very high, and you will see that in the case management. What was the reason that it was very high? You'll see VPN obfuscation and the exact reason, okay, why this eventually was at very high, which resulted in blocking this attempt, whether that's login or transaction or payment. It's according to your policy.
Thank you. You've actually answered something that I'm currently looking for. You know, doesn't mean that everybody using VPN is a default. So when you talk about non-VPNs, that is something that I'm looking for on how, because right now we just block out anything that has VPN in it. So I'm looking for something how we can sort of have a database for the VPNs and not block traffic from everyone just because they're using a VPN.
Exactly.
So yeah, so that is something. Yeah, you mentioned it, and maybe you will tell me how to go ahead on this.
No, absolutely, you're totally right. I mean, the thing is that today, remember, that's how we started. The industry works in silos, right? So due to the fact that you cannot really predict accurately or distinguish accurately, you don't want to take any chances, and you just block everything behind it, but you're also blocking lots of legitimate transactions, payments, and good users. So yeah, it's definitely not relying on a single vector or factor. And yes, VPN is definitely one of the areas that we specialize in order to enable the good VPNs to operate while looking at those risky and suspicious attempts that must be blocked, and of course added to our global fraud network database.
Any more questions? I want again to reiterate that materials will be sent and everyone will be contacted. And for those who have interest, we will have a session on one-on-one with you and your teams. So if you have more questions, we are on the last minutes of the webinar, actually already been elapsed the time of the webinar. I always think it's a positive thing when things do take long like this, especially in meetings and presentations. If you have more questions, let us know. If not, Segun, I think you have reached the end of the session.
Yeah, exactly, Sarah. Fantastic presentation by Zif. Thank you, Zif. Thank you, Sarah. And of course, Dean doing a lot of things at the background. Thank you so very much. And yes, our utmost gratitude goes to every one of you for spending an hour and 35 minutes with us. You could have been doing something else. A fantastic session for you. Learning and understanding what Paygilant is. And yes, we're more than happy to take this conversation forward on a personal basis with your individual organization. Of course, DataGroupIT and Paygilant has got the spread across Africa. So irrespective of the country you may be connecting from, we'll be more than happy to engage with you with our team on ground locally. And thank you once again. We look forward to your engagements. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
A wonderful rest of the day.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you, DGIT team.
Sure. Thank you.